Welcome to the Empowered Christian Woman Podcast. My name is Jeannette Cochran. I'm a pastor, women's leadership coach, and self-proclaimed Jesus feminist. I'm on a mission to inspire and equip women everywhere to own our voice, speak up, create, and lead wherever God calls. Because when women rise, everyone wins. Hey friend, welcome back to the podcast. I'm so glad that you're here today. Let me ask you a quick question. How often do you find yourself in a conversation at work or maybe at church in your ministry and you say something like, "Sorry, but do you have a minute?" Or, "I'm not an expert, but..." If you're like me, you have used those phrases a time or two, and you've heard others use them or similar phrases as well. And today, I'm going to talk with you about something that affects so many of us, especially as women in leadership, and that is how we may be unintentionally undermining ourselves in our speech. Now, as I share this information, I wanted to preface it by saying it's not that we're doing something wrong, and it's definitely not because we're weak or incapable. But these speech patterns that I'm going to share with you in just a minute often show up for us because we as women have been shaped by messages, experiences, and environments that have trained us to soften our voices. And so we may be subtly undermining ourselves in our words. And as a result, our ideas aren't having the impact that they could. I remember first becoming aware of these types of speech patterns many years ago when I read a book by Tara Moore called Playing Big. It's a book that I highly recommend, by the way. And she has a whole chapter on powerful communications. The speech patterns that I'm going to talk about today, you'll probably recognize them, and they show up oftentimes in conversations with our girlfriends or our family. And in those contexts, it's probably not that big of a deal. But when you are speaking in a context where you want to be seen as competent and confident, you're trying to make a good impression, or you're trying to persuade someone towards your point of view, or you're trying to influence someone in a direction that's really important, in these contexts, these particular word patterns can really negatively impact us. Because in many contexts, women are judged differently. The same statements and the same actions that can be seen as bold and confident from a man are often labeled abrasive or bossy when it comes to a woman. Because confident women are judged more harshly and are often seen as less likable than men. There's actually research to back this up. A study from Columbia Business School backs this up. A professor there took the real life story of a successful entrepreneur named Heidi and gave it to two groups of students. But there was one difference. Half of them read about Heidi, and for the other half of the students, the name was changed to Howard. Same career, same leadership skills, same success. The only difference was one group of students read about a female, Heidi, while the other group read about a male, Howard. And the results? Well, the students rated both of them equally competent, but Heidi was seen as less likable and more selfish, while Howard was viewed as strong and admirable. He was a leader that the students said they would want to work with. But the students that read the study with Heidi said that they would not want to work for a leader like her. This is what's termed the double bind or the competency likability paradox. This is the tightrope that women leaders walk. And because of this, over time, we have learned to adjust. We hedge, we over apologize, we qualify what we say. And oftentimes it's not because we're really unsure of ourselves, it's because we've been conditioned to believe that the only way that we will be heard is if we soften our speech. And so we do this to be accepted and to avoid criticism. But there's a trade off because while these habits may be strategies that once served us, they often will also hold us back. Because while they may help us win brownie points as being the nice girl, they also inadvertently diminish our competence and our confidence, which undermines our leadership effectiveness and can diminish our leadership presence. So, what are these speech patterns? Well, I want to talk about 3 of them today. The first is called hedging. This is when we use words like just, actually, or kind of. So let me give you some examples. I'm just wondering the status of the project. Or I kind of think we should try this. We often use this language to distance ourselves from our request or our perspective so that we don't come across too demanding or arrogant. But it makes us sound less confident because it frames our point as either an interruption or that we're unsure of our position. Now, if you are unsure of your position, then it's probably important to just state that up front. But the reality is, usually when we use these phrases, we're not unsure. Oftentimes we're very confident, but the language we use doesn't relay that. So instead, we want to reframe the hedging language. Instead of saying, I'm just checking in on the status of the project, remove the word just altogether and say, I'm checking in on the status of the project. Instead of, I kind of think we should try this, simply say, I recommend we try this. I recommend shows confidence without being demanding. And then the second type of minimizing language is apologizing. Women do this a lot. Sorry to bother you. Sorry, but I just wanted to add. Sorry, I have one more thing. Now, of course, I'm not talking about genuine apologies when we've done something wrong or made a mistake. What I'm talking about here are the unnecessary ones. Sometimes we as women apologize for having a thought. We apologize for taking up someone's time. But that kind of speech sends a message that I'm not sure I have the right to be here or that my ideas aren't worth listening to. So instead, we want to reframe unnecessary apologies. Instead of sorry to bother you, you could simply say, do you have a moment to discuss this? Instead of sorry, I just wanted to add something, simply say, I'd like to add something to that. Instead of saying, sorry, I'm late, you could say, thanks for your patience. One of the reframes that I have used to eliminate the word sorry from being overused in my vocabulary is instead to say thank you. So, for example, instead of saying, I'm sorry that I'm late, you might say, thanks for your patience. Or how about this one? How many times have you said to someone in an email, I'm sorry it's taken me so long to get back to you? You could simply say, I realize it's been a couple of days since I've responded. Thank you for your patience. See the difference? When you stop over apologizing, you take up more space. You speak with more clarity. You own your voice. So here's your reminder. You don't need to apologize for existing or for having a thought or for needing someone's time. Save the sorries for when you have truly wronged someone or made a mistake. And then the third type of minimizing speech is qualifying. This sounds like I'm not an expert, but, Or I could be wrong about this, but, or how about this one? You may have already thought about this, but it's a speech of shrinking or downplaying our authority. And this weakens our communication because it signals to the listener that they should discount what you're about to say, making it seem less valuable. Ultimately, it signals doubt. So, how do we reframe these? Well, here are some examples. Instead of, I'm not an expert, but you could simply say, based on my experience, here's what I recommend. Or instead of, I could be wrong, try out, here's what I have seen work well. Instead of, you may have already thought about this, reframe that with, one perspective to consider is, by reframing your phrases in this way, you own your expertise and you state your position confidently without over explaining or apologizing. So, why do we do this? Why do we use this minimizing speech? Well, I want to suggest there are probably three reasons why this is so common in women's speech. Well, the first is it could just be a habit that we grew up hearing women talk this way. Our moms, our teachers, our friends. And so it became normal. It was something that we mimicked, but it's just a habit. Another reason may just simply be self doubt or our inner critic. Maybe we really are feeling unsure. Maybe our inner critic is telling us that we're not sure that we belong in this room or at this table. At times when we're not feeling confident, we may speak smaller so that we don't risk being too much. And then the third reason that we sometimes use this type of speech is what I like to call strategic softening. Sometimes it's not insecurity. Sometimes it's strategic. In those moments when you know your voice may not be welcomed. You've learned that if you don't cushion your ideas, you risk being dismissed or disliked. This is especially common in Christian cultures where we as women are often taught to be humble at all costs. But I want to remind you that true humility is not about pretending you have nothing to offer. Humility is knowing that your strengths come from God and stewarding them boldly. And if you recognize these in your speech, I want you to know you're not doing anything wrong. So often when I share these types of speech minimizers with women and they become aware of them and they start to notice how often they say these things, they tend to beat themselves up. But I want you to recognize that you're not alone. The reason it's important for us to talk about this is because it's extremely common for women. It's usually because we're adapting. We're trying to thrive in a system that wasn't built with us in mind. But now that you're aware, I want you to choose how you want to lead. I want you to choose your language intentionally. But the good news is you don't have to overhaul everything overnight, particularly if you find a few of these have become a habit. Just choose one habit. Is it apologizing, hedging, qualifying? Start noticing it and practice replacing it with something stronger. But again, please hear me on this. Your speech patterns didn't come out of thin air. They were shaped by systems and messages that told you to be smaller. So this isn't about blame. It's about reclaiming your voice. The real solution is that we need to change the systems. But while we continue to work towards that future, towards bringing about change in the system, we can also adapt with wisdom and courage. So, here's my encouragement to you as we close. You don't have to be less to lead well. You don't have to apologize for taking up space. Don't minimize your voice. Speak up. Use it. Speak clearly, lead boldly, and know that your voice matters because you matter. So keep rising to your full potential because we know that when women rise, everyone wins. Thanks for joining me for this episode of the Empowered Christian Woman Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and share it with other women in your network. For more information about me and the work that I do, check out JeannetteCochran.com. And I'd love to hear from you personally. Come join the conversation on social. You can find me on Facebook at jcochrancoach or Instagram at Jeannette.Cochran.